Okay, perfect.
You let me know when you're ready. Everybody, we have a few bills to talk about today. I thought it would be good for the committee to hear about the higher education bills that passed the House this week. And we'll start with the DEI bill, Keith.
Morning, everyone. So as Mark said, the House took action on, I think, just about every higher education bill on Tuesday. So the first one we can talk about is House File 269, which is the DEI bill, specifically related to the regents. They made one change to the definition of DEI. They took out one paragraph there, but otherwise it was unchanged outside of that. It was a partisan debate. It now moves to the Senate. Happy to take questions on that one.
And it's been referred to the Senate Education Committee, but no subcommittee's been assigned yet.
Correct.
Is that a substantive change on the definition of DEI?
Somewhat. It was, if you look at the original version, it was paragraph 3A that was struck.
They still get at the intent of the DEI definition with the remaining B, C, and D in that bill.
Okay.
Keith, you want to do accrediting restrictions?
Sure. House File 295 is the accreditation bill. This is the bill that says that an accrediting agency cannot take an adverse action against an institution for following state law. Again, this passed the House. No changes were made. This one was not very contentious at all. And again, this moves to the Senate Education Committee, and we've not seen a subcommittee assigned yet on this one.
You know, Keith, as you're talking about the education bills, one of the news clippings we got this morning talked about Len Evans and how he was looking at the higher education bills. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Senator Evans was speaking for the Senate. I think, you know, that each body wants to remain as independent as possible. And so in this meeting, I'll let Senator Evans speak for himself.
Okay.
School of Intellectual Freedom, Keith.
So again, this was debated on the House floor. They made a couple of changes just to conform with other pieces of legislation, nothing major. Relatively contentious, but nothing terrible. Again, this moves to the Senate. The Senate does have a companion bill that's already moved out of committee. So this one, we're not concerned about making the second funnel.
Was the vote pretty much on party lines on that, Keith?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And the contention was, what were the specific issues the Democrats raised?
I think just whether or not there was a need for a center for intellectual diversity. It was, yeah.
Okay.
There were a few points raised on cost.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. It wasn't very focused, I thought. But I think there were a few the votes were different. You know, there were some amendment votes and then the final vote. So it was a little, some people switched back and forth.
Yeah, there were a handful of Republicans that didn't
voted
vote
against it.
Right, didn't vote for some of the bills. If you're interested in the debate, we can send you the clips. The legislative website does a nice job on each individual bill that's debated, you can pull up the video file of that bill being debated on the floor. So
Okay,
if you're interested, we can send those to you.
perfect. Thank you.
And this is Robert. Did we register in favor of all these or were we neutral on any of them?
We were in favor of all of these.
Robert, for your information, we did have a good discussion last week, and I apologize. There was some malfunction with people getting the link or the notice, but we did have a good discussion on these bills last week and did make decisions to register in support of several of them.
Okay.
Caroline, do you want to talk about the Regents tuition bill?
Yeah, House File 440 passed like 6634 with a major amendment. To recall, House File 440 had the cap of 3% in the statute and tuition guarantee and some other provisions. The amendment struck the cap and then requires the board to set tuition by April 30th for the next fiscal year. The amendment also directs the board to explore efforts to offer at least one baccalaureate degree that can be completed in 3 years and set up a work study program. So in the original bill, it was a work plus. And then also undertake a in-state undergraduate tuition study. And the bill has been sent to the House, to Senate Education, and has not received a subcommittee yet.
Okay.
Yeah. House File 401 is the core curriculum bill related to the general education standards at the universities. One sort of technical amendment was offered just to clean up some language. Again, this passed on relatively straight party lines, moves to the Senate. Again, we haven't seen a subcommittee assigned yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a bill here to bring to you for your consideration as to whether or not the board would want to support this legislation. It's related to taxing an area of nicotine products and vaping products, including e-liquids, nicotine pouches, and vapor cartridges. The reason I'm bringing this bill to you beyond the public health aspect would be that it specifically creates a new fund for cancer research where the revenue generated from this tax would be credited to the Iowa Cancer Research Fund. That would be a fund under the purview of the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services, and entities that that provide research could apply to the fund for monies. At this time, there's not a fiscal note, so I'm not certain how much money would be generated by this particular tax. As you might imagine, there are entities in opposition who represent these particular products, and then some groups that just are anti-tax. We do know the governor had proposed funding in her bill to create a cancer research funding as well within the Iowa Department of Human Services. And so that appropriations bill, I mean, we haven't seen language as to whether or not the Senate or House will be including that. But this is just another avenue asked by some of the cancer and public health advocates if this is something the board would consider supporting.
Thoughts from board members? What would be the level of tax that they're talking about?
Yeah, I honestly don't know, and I don't see the specific percentages in the bill. I can tell you that surrounding states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska have some sort of a tax, and it's different, whether it's per milliliter or in another manner. South Dakota, Missouri do not have a tax. I expect there will be a fiscal note out soon. This just came out of a Ways and Means subcommittee, so this is also not subject to the funnel. And the House does not have a companion bill at this time, I believe.
My immediate reaction is, I'm not supportive of vaping and all that stuff, so I don't like it. But since we don't have a fiscal note and it was in the governor's budget, it would be nice to, maybe if we could wait until we get a little more information.
Okay.
That would be my thought. I'd appreciate thoughts from the rest of the group.
I feel the same. I don't think we have enough information yet on it.
I agree.
agree.
Does Robert?
Yep, I agree as well.
I agree as well. I'm sorry, the screen froze for a while, so I didn't get what you said, Chris. Could you repeat?
Since we don't have the fiscal note and the governor has it in her, I would just think that
Yes,
we would
yeah.
wait a week or so until we get more information.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes the list that I brought for the committee today, but we'd be happy to discuss any other legislation that the board or committee members would like to talk about.
I did have a question. I was talking with Rob Denson at DMAC, and he asked where the Regents was at on a bill, Senate File 431, and it's regarding a contract. It's relates to contractors working on public schools, universities, municipalities. Have we looked at that bill? Do we have? He's hoping that the Regents would consider registering in support of it. A lot of the other entities that you would think have, I guess, registered in support of it.
So I can, this has to do with construction contracts and retainage and how that's applied as
Right.
work is finished on a project.
Right.
We've been monitoring this legislation. Obviously, our projects are bigger and obviously more complex than others in the state. It's legislation we're still monitoring and waiting on analysis from the institutions. So we'll keep you updated in the future on this piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any bills that we're concerned about getting through the funnel that we need to be aware of?
None that come to mind.
Okay.
I just say that I think there's been more attention to admissions policy recently, and that just might be something that might be worth either a presentation or some kind of study group for the Regents on our test optional policy, graduate school admissions, resident versus non-resident, and as well as the CLT, just to get ahead of what, even if there's no action in this session, I feel like there's maybe some interest building possibly for a future session.
Good comment. On that bill where they talked about the residency requirements, what are the thoughts on that?
Are you referring to the residency requirements related to the College of Medicine and Dentistry?
Yes, yes, sorry.
So that has passed the House. That is in the Human Services Standing Committee in the Senate. We do have a subcommittee assigned there. Senator Clemish, Rowley, and the Democrat name escapes me off the top of my head. Schongarian. It would move the mandatory number of residents admitted to both the College of Medicine and College of Dentistry from, it would create a minimum of 80% being from Iowan. We've never had a minimum put in statute before, but traditionally both of those colleges have had approximately 70% of their admitted class as Iowans. there's also some discussion as to, do you also count students who attended a private school in Iowa who might be out of state but went to undergrad, say at Luther or Central, considered as residents, or former Iowans who left the state for undergrad and came back. So we're working through some of those issues. I will say that the institution is very interested in educating as many Iowans as possible, but we also realize that out-of-state students also provide a richness to the class and also provide some needed out-of-state revenue as well.
And we are undecided on that bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Keith, did you say that we're close to 70% for both medical school and dental?
Yes.
Okay.
And the numbers, I think we have 152 members in the College of Medicine class and 80 members of a dental class. So, you know, those numbers bounce around a little just because the percentages are.
And that's with a strict definition of residence, right?
Correct. Yes.
So if you expanded that definition in some of the ways you were talking about it, it might even be closer to 80%.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
This
That
is
is-
Robert. Boy, it sure seems like there could be some negative. It seems like it could only be negative consequences for that. You know, you get stuck and you end up sending some out of state ones home or not allowing them because you got to keep your percentage up. You know, I mean, that doesn't seem like a good legislation to me.
I've heard that comment several times, Robert.
I will say that the admissions committees in talking to out-of-state students, they do make inquiries with those students in the interviews as to what, you know, do they intend on staying in Iowa once they graduate?
Okay.
Obviously, those aren't statements that students can promise, but they do look for Iowa connections when they're recruiting out-of-state students for these slots.
How many interviews do they do?
For the medical school, I want to say about 2,000.
2,000?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Dentistry,
For
I don't-
150 some? Ooh.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
Dentistry, I know they get thousands of applications for 80 spots.
Right.
The good news is we have about 300 Iowans roughly apply for medical school, and we take about 100 each year. So as an Iowan, you have a 1 in 3 shot of getting a seat.
We
Excellent.
have gotten some communication from Iowans with very strong records who've been turned down, and that's why I think, you know, this becomes a controversial issue.
Absolutely. Anything else that we should be aware of in this upcoming week at the Capitol?
Not really. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of floor work and also transitioning to committee work as they start preparing for the second funnel, which is 2 weeks from today.
Correct, yeah. Okay. Excellent. Other thoughts, comments from anybody else on the call? Couple of follow-up questions. Is this helpful for board members? Is this time the right time to do this for everybody? Any thoughts or opinions on that?
I think it's helpful and the time's okay with me, but I don't know. I'm flexible on the time.
Okay,
I agree, Chris.
Yep. Same here.
okay.
Yeah, this is Robert. Fine with me. And I had another thought. I wonder if the university, and I'm sure the university has already tried to do this as much as possible, but it seems like a better goal would be to increase our capacity for med and dental students, you know, by 10% rather than trying to cap, you know, one side or the other. We'd want to take the best qualified, you know, no matter what. And so, yeah, we should be working on increasing capacity instead of, you know, trying to take in-state versus out-of-state. That's my only comment.
You know, I think that's a good comment. And when I mentioned maybe doing some kind of study of admissions, capacity would certainly be an issue to look at.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Related to that, I think you would also run into issues of physical limitations on the size of the facilities we have. So
Right. No, and we hear that. I think that would be good to understand a little more, though. Is that going to be the case forever? Are we never going to expand these programs, or
Yep.
Well, and if you look, I believe we all received an email from a physician that his daughter applied for nursing school, and the response that we received was very informative because it did address the limitations that were there because of space. So, excellent. Hearing anything else? I'm not hearing anything else. I
No,
think
always worth noting, though, on that we are expanding nursing capacity with the new program at UNI.
that is correct, and that's a great
Always
program.
good to remind people of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else, Mark?
That's all we have.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you for all the updates.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.